Hello everyone and welcome to CareersTalk. I'm Sunan Sharma, an agile consultant based in Netherlands, and today we are going to discuss 15 Scrum Master interview questions asked as LTI, Mindtree, Wipro, Cognizant, shared by our group members. And to help us, we have invited Ashutosh Agrawal, who is an agile project manager at Capgemini. And this is part 2 of our series featuring Ashutosh. You can find the link to part 1 in the description and you can watch it later. But before we start, make sure to subscribe for more informative sessions. And if you find this content useful, don't forget to hit that like button. Also, friends, you can check out our exclusive interview questions shared with our silver and gold members. If you're not yet a YouTube member, you can join for a small fee. And apart from exclusive content, you will be also become a part of our discussion groups and WhatsApp job community. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, Ashutosh, and thank you for giving your time today. Ashutosh, over to you.
Thank you, Sunant, for giving me this opportunity again to connect with you for this part two. And I hope this session would be again helpful to your viewers. Thank you.
Yeah, our viewers.
Yeah, our viewers. Thank you. Yeah, we can
Okay,
start.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the very first question of this session is, how do you work in collaboration with other teams in an art agile restraint? Ashutosh.
Okay. To start with the answer, like it has many aspects to collaborate with other teams as a Scrum Master. So if we are working in an art, so I'm assuming as the question says that we work in an art, I will also take this question as when we don't work in an art, how do we collaborate? So firstly, coming to an art perspective, if we are working in an art, then collaboration starts from the very beginning of your PI planning. When you do the PI planning and execute it, when you plan for a quarter, then during the PI planning, you would be collaborating with internal teams that are within the art, and you would be also collaborating with the teams that are external to your art. It could be possible that some teams that are external, but you are dependent on them for some inputs in your features and stories. So to figure that out, uh, there are two scenarios like brainstorming in breakout sessions. If you do the pre PI planning to some extent, you would be knowing that what teams, what features are in your queue that are coming for the PI planning. Then you know that what teams you would be inviting in your breakout sessions for mapping out those dependencies and risk. That is again a part of collaboration. So again, first point of collaboration, inviting those teams into PI breakout sessions. It could be internal teams within an art, or it could be external teams which you are dependent on, so that they can commit on the dependencies according to the sprint. You can use Jira Align or some other tool, maybe a collaborative tool of Mural Board, to map those dependencies, call out those dependencies by sprint, that by that sprint end date you are demanding that dependency to be committed. Okay. Now coming to other collaboration activities with other teams within an art, it would be again in SOS, when you connect with other Scrum Masters, it would be chaired by or addressed by RTE, or maybe the lead Scrum Master. In some scenarios, in some hierarchy, there are some lead Scrum Masters who design this SOS, or maybe the art sync. In some scenarios there would be an art sync where all the POs and Scrum Masters connect, or in some scenarios there would be Scrums and PO sync would be a different meeting. But yes, there would be an art level sync with other Scrum Masters. For example, if you are having a, suppose if I'm from team A and I am having some dependencies on team B, C, and D, either these dependencies would have been mapped at the time of PI planning, or if they have evolved during the PI execution, we would be discussing them in Scrum of Scrums or the art sync call, and we would be mapping them into the tool that we are using, and again taking the commitments. We can also call out those dependencies in those collaboration calls if we don't see as a scrum master that they are being addressed or moved according to the committed time frame. So this is how we connect on daily basis or weekly basis with other scrum masters in an art. Coming to the third point, if there is an ad hoc need, suppose if dependencies that we discussed during PI planning or during the scrum of scrums or maybe any issues that we have taken into account. Apart from these, some other issues we see, or some other help is needed, some other discussions are needed. There could be some ad hoc calls that, as a Scrum Master, I would be setting up with their Scrum Masters or their developers or testers with my team members, so that we can come on the same page um, accordingly. So if I take an example, a broader example that I am doing currently is that a feature that my team is handling uh, is dependent on some other team, and that team is not clear about the requirements. So it involves three teams: my team, their team, like the data warehouse team my team is dependent on, and this data warehouse team is not clear about the requirement of that feature. So I would also include the business people from for that purpose, because they need some clarity on requirements from business. So I have set up a weekly call with business and with data warehouse team and my team, so that we should be on same page, whatever be the progress. It the future, we kept it as a stretch in our current PI, because it is in discussion. Earlier it was committed, but again they didn't have some clarity. So this is how we are collaborating on weekly basis and progressing on the requirements, because ultimately those requirements data warehouse team would be working on, and my team is dependent on that team. So that is a good example to see how we collaborate within an art. Over to you, Sunil. Yeah.
Thank you, Ashutosh. There are one or more two things. Maybe we can also add about PO sync or R sync, and then we have an inspect and adapt. So yeah, there are few more
Yes.
opportunities where we can. Okay, wonderful. Let's move on to our next question, which is about conflict resolution. So, as in Scrum Master, if you are working with too many teams in a safe environment, so can you tell us any of the example from your past experience where you have involved in resolving the conflict and how you resolve a conflict? If you can share some, yeah, past example, that will be great.
Okay, so yes, as a Scrum Master, Sunand, this is the core job of a Scrum Master to resolve the conflicts, because in day-to-day life we have people and team members from different perspective, different backgrounds, and they have different style of their own to develop things. But yes, due to this, sometimes they we cannot say fight, but they come to a point where they don't agree with each other. So if I take an example of peer reviews, like it happened me very recently, a senior member who is giving the peer review to junior people in the team, one of the team members is thinking that okay, I am only getting the harsh reviews from the senior architect or the senior person who is giving the peer review, and the task that they are using for the review is not properly maintained within the story. There is a subtask where I personally say it is assigned, like it should be assigned to the senior architect, and they um, give the peer review comments on onto their task. So what I suggested to resolve this conflict is that firstly we should be setting up some guidelines of coding. If some people are doing coding apart from those coding guidelines, we would be discussing that in a call. So there should be a call weekly as per the need, maybe 10-15 minutes with the architect who is giving up the review to each team member, and everybody in the team would be joining that call. It should not be like that the two persons are joining and then they are not agreeing on that. So everybody would be agreeing on coding guidelines, everybody would be agreeing on the solution, on the improvements of any of the code that we are discussing. We would not be taking names of the individuals who have developed that code. We would be taking into account only the guidelines or reference code to improve the code or the development that we have done. So that is how that conflict got resolved, because nobody now is being blamed. We are working as a team. We are only taking out the improvement areas of the coding, from and taking suggestions from everybody. Maybe the senior architect is suggesting more than others, but yes, at this time everybody is participating, and everybody is pointing out the improvement areas of every code. So this would be a collaborative activity for the team, and then and how it would got resolved, and it has like I have used this technique many times, and uh, honestly speaking, it has worked magically. Over to you. Yeah.
Great, Ashutosh. So I also want to just add one of the examples. So it happened, I think, 3, 4 years back. So during a PI, there are two teams. Let's say team A, team B, back end and a front end, and they had a very strong dependency. So team A, they kept changing their API specification during the sprint, mid sprint, without informing the team B. Now, this caused integration failure, and there are a lot of delays which is happening. And during Scrum call, the discussion become heated, and Team B accused Team A of being unreliable, and Team A said that Team B don't understand the technical constraint and things like that. So the conflict started affecting both the teams, and of course the BI objective. So I was there as a Scrum Master for Team B. So I have to de-escalate the conflict. I have to restore the collaboration, and at the end of the day, we have to ensure that the delivery of all those dependencies features has to be resolved in order to deliver that current PA. So what we have done, we just invited both the teams, their POs, and of course our RT. We established the ground rules that let's focus on the problem and not on the people. That's the most common issue which will happen whenever there is some sort of conflict. And we done a small workshop where we use this 5 by techniques to uncover the root cause, and we found that team A had no formal API change process, and sometimes they felt pressurized when there is a change in the architecture. So what we have done, we introduce a very lightweight API change protocol. So whenever now the API changes is happening, we must communicate in our teams, and we have to update in Jira within 24 hours. Then we also have a joint technical review, which is like a 15-minute huddle which we have created. And whatever the effective stories, right, we move back to ready for dev. So that's what we have done. And of course we have to align our work sequencing on the program board, which sometimes we forget. So we work with our product owner to adjust the priorities. We update the dependencies link in our art program board. So the sequencing was clear, like who is going to do what, right? And of
Right.
course, we have encouraged to have a direct communication between the developers. Maybe a short daily sync, which we are doing 15 minutes call and all. And yeah, so that's what we have done, and it take around 2 sprints, and then all those integration failures drop to almost zero in 2 to 3 sprints, and both team hit their PA objective. So that was a really something which we have done. Moreover, the RT adopted our API change protocol as a best practice across the entire art, and then other teams also replicate that thing. So yes, teams improve the trust and they start collaborating with each other proactively rather than reactively. So
I
that's
totally
something which,
agree. I totally agree, Sunat, because see, everybody tries to deliver the best they can. They are not literally fighting with each other. The thing is that the example that I gave you is again the same thing that I gave you earlier. That okay, data warehouse team was not saying that we cannot deliver to your team. Actually, they are also facing that difficulty with business, that they are not clear, they don't have clarity on the requirement. So that is how, like, if we focus on problems rather than blaming individuals in the team, then problem get resolved. And that is a very good example, Sunan. Thank you for that.
okay. Okay, so let's move on to our next one. This question is, I think, is again which you have already discussed, but let me just ask you again. Maybe you can keep it little brief. So let's say your one of your user story is depend on other teams' work, and they are unable to deliver on time. So what is your approach as a Scrum Master?
Okay, so that is somehow connected to these previous questions of
Yeah,
collaboration and
all these are like a kind
dependency.
of follow-up question and then follow-up
Yes.
question. Yeah.
So in that case, as a Scrum Master, I would be first of all digging deep that why it is happening. I would connect to the Scrum Master of that team, if that is an external team or internal team. That why it is happening. if we can help them to accelerate the delivery from their side, if some help is needed, or if some clarity is needed, if we can help, or we can together work as a team, like my team and their team, to accelerate this delivery if something is needed. Even if it is not working, I will make it clear to my stakeholders, my RT and my product owner, that this story is blocked from other team due to this reason, and because of some specific reason this is not going ahead, and they suppose, for example, they have to deliver us in sprint 2 and we are using that input in sprint 3, and they're not going to deliver in sprint 2, so we cannot take these stories in sprint 3. So our PI execution will also stop or will change or modify accordingly. Maybe we would be delivering this in sprint 4 and they would be delivering in sprint 3. So accordingly, if we have that tool, like for I like that tool Jira Align very much now because my team is using that. Suppose in that case, if they are delivering in sprint 3, I can change that dependency date to sprint 3 and take a commitment from them to commit that dependency on Jira Align, and then I can inform the same to my stakeholders over the mail and the relative corresponding calls. If they are joining some calls, like again the PO sync or the art sync, if RT is joining, then that would be the you can say the issue that I would raise, that okay, this is how it is happening and we would be delaying this story. If that is okay, if that is not okay, both plans can be discussed, what can be done in that sense. If they are delivering it a little late, if we can accommodate that, that would also be an option. So yes, I will keep that very transparent at the part of within my team, within their team, and within whole of the art, that this is how we are. It may be possible that what they are delivering, suppose if there is, for example, in my earlier project there was an adapter team, my team was designing some system APIs, and then adapter team, if they are not delivering um the adapter very well tested, we cannot start the integration, we cannot do the integration testing with my system APIs to their adapter code. So in that sense, and again, that system APIs that my team is designing would be again used by process APIs that is again designed by client side only. So if we are not informing them, or if we are not keeping it very transparent at the earlier stage, it would again cause the same thing as you mentioned in earlier example, that the delivery would fail. So I would say that as a scrum master, everyone should be as proactive to inform stakeholders what they see, what they foresee would be happening in the future. So yes, in that sense, I would be handling this by keeping everybody very transparent and informed. And whatever be the plan, if they are getting delayed, if it is blocked or paused, we would clearly mention the reason, and we will take up some other work instead of that those stories which are blocked due to a particular story or particular team. Yeah, over to you, Sunil.
Wonderful, Ashutosh. So if I have to just summarize very quickly, the very first thing which we are supposed to do, make that dependency visible immediately. So
Right.
we should update our program board or Jira or Azure DevOps dependency link and call it out in Scrum of Scrum. So visibility is the key in safe. So we have to make sure that it has to be first of all visible, and then talk to directly to other Scrum Master or the team member. So understand the blocker, the capacity constraint, or some priority conflict. So ask them like what is realistically possible and when. So that's the second thing which we could have done. And of course, we have to involve the product owners to realign the priorities. If dependency is critical, both views may need to adjust the backlog order, which is again something very important. And sometimes the other team can pull it forward, if the business value is clear. So that's something I think we should also try to do. Maybe we can deliver the story into two slices, maybe stubbed API now, or maybe full integration later on, something like that. Maybe we can use an enabler or a spike to prepare our work and reduce the future delays. So something which we can think about it. Maybe we can temporarily decouple via maybe a mock data until the integration point is stable or something like that. Anything which we can do. And of course, uh, we should also escalate to RT if it threatened the PI objective. RD help resolve all these blockers. Escalation in safe is not a punishment, it's not a sin, it's a part of your flow management, so it's very important. And of course we can adjust our sprint scope if necessary. We can replan it transparently with your team members, with other team members, and of course we can maintain some sort of predictability in place of pretending that the dependency does not exist, right? So maybe this will also help top of it whatever you just mentioned, Ashish. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and one point for the new Scrum Masters who are viewing this episode, I would also add to this that documenting everything is important when we are like modifying a PI objective plan. So what normally follow the practice that if discussions are going to and forth, I keep the note, I publish MOM, that is minutes of meeting, onto the mail and with the dependency link that this is what we discussed, these are the key points that we agreed on, these are the open questions, and this is the dependency link. If the date or something on the dependency has been changed, everybody or the every stakeholder that is involved can see and check the link. So that is again I add on this answer. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful, Ashish. Thank you for that additional thing. Okay, friends, so we are halfway through our session, and if you're still with us, please smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. Okay, so with this request, let's move on to our next question, which is with respect to product owner. So let's say if you ask your team to develop something important uh, in the middle of the sprint. So how you are going to react? How you are going to manage it as a Scrum Master?
Okay, so again I would say that it needs to dig deeper. What is the impact of that story and what is the purpose? So two things: impact of the story and the purpose of the story the PO is asking. So if that is very crucial, and if we have discussed it, if not, my first point would be to discuss it with PO and RT that this is the change in the plan because the PO is saying that this story is very crucial. Either we would be deferring some stories from the current sprint, and if we are doing that, like, it depends on the nature of the story he or she is asking. If that is only a 2 or 3 pointer, we can accommodate that. If that is something calling a bigger impact and it is bigger than 5 pointer and so on, we would be discussing and redesigning our sprints. I will inform that this redesigning will impact the whole of the PI execution because we would be deferring some stories from next sprint, then to next sprint, then to next sprint. And then it can also affect the teams who are dependent on my work or my team's work. It would they are dependent on us, and our stories would get affected. So in a long run, everything would get affected. If we are ready to redesign in the middle of the PI or in the middle of the sprint, as per se, then it is okay. Then we have to talk and we have to inform every dependent team for that sake. And if we are okay, if the story is too crucial and everybody agrees on that, then as a scrum master I would be discussing it with my team. Second point is, like, first of all I would be discussing it with RTE and PO. Second point is I would be discussing it with my team how we would be changing it according to the prioritization, discussing, taking an agreement with the PO. Then we would be publishing that plan to stakeholders. Stakeholders means RTPO and other stakeholders who are involved and who have interest in the development of my team. So that would be again a total change of PI execution. So because if the story is only 2 or 3 pointers uh, bigger, then we can accommodate that. We can ask our developers to accommodate that if it is too crucial. But yes, if it is asking to redefine the P execution and the sprints execution, we need to again make it visible in all the calls and make it visible in our boards also, that this is how we are changing. If that is again a story that is coming from another feature, that is again a different scenario, we will be adding that feature in our P execution, and will define the dependencies, will define the risk, and also all these smaller points. It seems to be sometimes very small, but the impact is always bigger because we are adding it and it is affecting all of the execution of the PI. So we have to take in account that where it will impact the deferred stories, the dependencies, the other teams who are dependent, and the whole of the delivery of the applications that we are doing. Yeah, over to you.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Ashutosh. Thank you. So, just to summarize very quickly, so as an Scrum Master, first of all, we should acknowledge the PO urgency. And at the same time, as a Scrum Master, we should protect the team's commitment and the sprint goal. So, we should discuss with the PO whether this particular new work is truly aligned with or it's going to threaten our sprint goal. If it does align, if it's truly critical, important, we negotiate what existing stories can be removed from the sprint backlog to maintain the team capacity. But if it does not align to the sprint goal, then maybe probably we can advise PO to place it into the product backlog for the next sprint, or maybe we can raise it during the PI or a sprint planning session. So I think, yeah, just to summarize it very quickly, if the request is as a business urgency beyond the normal process, of course, as you mentioned, we can involve the PO, the RT, and all our other team members, dependent team members, just to replan the discussion and things like that. And of course, we can always escalate it to RT or the product management in a safe environment if you're working in a safe. So yeah, that's something we just want to add very quickly. Okay, Ashutosh, thank you. Wonderful. Let's move on to our next question, which is on risk. So, what kind of risk which you face as a Scrum Master? If you can give a couple of examples, that will be great. How you manage risk, basically.
Okay, so management of risk starts with PI planning. So if we are into PI planning and if we foresee as a Scrum Master some risk, for example, um, I take an example of suppose we are designing some applications that are for some smart credit cards, and we foresee that now we are changing credit card numbers to. I'm just trying not to open the details of the project here. So if we are if we are trying to change some credit card numbers from, I'm taking an arbitrary example, but it is sometimes something similar. So if we are trying to change 16-digit credit card number to 14-digit, and we see a high risk that whole of the database is designed for 16-digit only, and we need to change each and every application and the database thing, and we foresee that somehow the team members are or the developers are not comfortable moving it to from 16 to 14 because everything will fall apart, but the business is asking this because they are introducing something new in the market and they are asking to design the applications and modify the applications according to the 14 digit credit card number. So this is a risk sometimes, though this is a business requirement, but the confidence level of the team members are not that much up. It may be possible that they are forcing something based on the requirements. There are some, or maybe the timelines because they see that many changes would be needed. So again, this is a risk for the development or all of the solutions that are connected to particular requirement that are connected to credit card moving from 16 digit to 14 digit account number. So in that sense, how we manage risk, that is the first thing that I want to answer. We like how I am doing this in my current company is calling out those risks on Jira Align at the time of PI planning and using the ROAM technique. ROAM stands for resolved, owned, accepted, and mitigated. So resolved risks are those risks that are discussed within the PI planning, and we uh, either as a team or as an art have addressed them, accepted them, and resolved them into the breakout sessions that okay, this person would be working on it is totally resolved at the time of planning, or anyhow it would get resolved within 1 or 2 sprints, but somebody has owned it. So that is something similar to owned also. Again, coming to owned, some team or some individual has taken up the ownership and he or she or the team has the plan to resolve that risk, and it would be resolved later, but yes, it has been owned within a PI. Then third one is accepted. the team or the art has accepted the risk, but they are not going to work on that risk because of maybe the low impact of the risk, or maybe the higher cost of the risk, or they don't think that the risk is very relevant and they can work within with that risk and can deliver. But yes, the art has to monitor, the team has to monitor whatever the risk is, so that it would not evolve with the time. That okay, we had accepted that this is a risk, but it should not be a huge elephant in the room to address later on. The fourth one is mitigated, that we have a plan and we have acted out upon them. The risk has been mitigated, but it is still exist. So again, same thing would be done, that we could keep an eye. The risk has been nullified, but 1% or 0.5% it is still there, and we would see that it would not evolve later on or would grow later on. So this is how I manage risk. So risk management involves categorization of risk, first of all. Then second point is owning of the risk. Who is the owner of the risk? Third point would be calling that risk in uh, in again artsing events and SOS. If these risks are not getting addressed, if you see that these are not moving ahead and nobody is working on them, then if you see that it is dependent on some other team, you have to call it out as a scrum master in SOS, scrum of scrums, or the artsing calls. And fourth is just a random thing that I do as a scrum master. If I see that this risk is not moving and risk is approaching us, I would take in account and inform, again making it visible to my RTE, that I have talked with this team. Suppose this is again a conflict, sometimes example of conflict, that okay, if some team is not addressing that risk that you are dependent on, you would be calling it as a high risk to your RTE, that okay, I have talked this much time, I have also pushing this to get this risk resolved, but they have committed in PI planning, now the risk is not moving. It may be possible that this is due to some dependency. I will also talk to that scrum master and try to figure it out, that it should not be later on a conflict of not resolving a risk. Okay. So sometimes risk also creates conflicts between the teams. Like we, as a scrum master, we resolve conflicts within our team. Sometimes there would be conflicts with other teams also on resolving the risk. So we also have to be cautious about that. So these 3 or 4 points I take in account to manage the risk. Over to you, Sunil.
Wonderful. Ashutosh, thank you. Just to add very quickly a little bit, not much, already explained in a detail. So the very first thing, I think we should able to maintain a visible team risk register, or you can also use your Jira or Azure DevOps and tag the risk labels, and you can tag them. And we have to make sure that all these risk has been shared during the Scrum of Scrum whenever we are raising some high impact risk. So make sure that it's visible, it's shared with everyone else. Otherwise sometimes people say, hey, yeah, it's there, but not aware about it. So that's also something which we can do about it. And there are few team and art level matrices that can be a early indicator of risk. So for example, the WIP limit. If we have a high WIP, it shows that there is a risk of bottleneck. If if we are slipping our velocity, it's a risk of missing the commitment. If we are failing the integration, is a technical risk. If we are not have a stable backlog, then it's a product risk, right? So maybe few matrices highlight also risk before they become blocker. So that's also something which we can look towards it. Yeah. So rest of the thing you have covered. So that's great. Let's not get into it. Let's move to our next question, which is pretty interesting. Let's say as a Scrum Master, you're working with three teams. You have team A, high performing. You have team B, just kind of average, and then your team C, which is underperforming. So as a Scrum Master, how would you manage your time? What will be your approach?
Okay. So, Sunand, this question particularly was asked in one of my interviews, and with like from the client side, and they asked only single question, and I got selected with this answer. It may sound very lame answer, but it is like they liked that answer very much. So I will tell that answer also, and I will tell something elaborative at this front because it has been some time I answered that answer. So I will tell you. So I answered them like that. Suppose for an analogy, I am the father and I have three children, and every children is dear to me. And my first children is well behaved, and he or she is excelling in his studies, and my other children is again having some problem, and the third children is the weakest. So I will try to devote my time accordingly. Like my child who is self sufficient, I will take some lesser time for that children, and accordingly will give some more time to the weakest children that I think that I should be supporting and guiding. So in the same sense, I answered that question. Coming elaborating that on the analogy of teams, so how I will do it. So I would be dividing my time, as if my team A is very mature and they are self-sufficient, I would be focusing on team B and C more as compared to team A. But it is not like that that I would be not focusing team A at all. But I will be dividing my time. That suppose if I'm taking a daily stand-up of 5 minutes from team A, that is sufficient, and taking a daily stand-up of team C for 15 minutes, that would be sufficient. So that is how I would divide my time according to the need of the hour. But yes, that is how I am, like, that is how I can ask. Sorry, that is how I would divide my time. But yes, I can also ask team A to help team B and C if they are working on some common areas. Suppose, for an example, if my team A, B, C, all of them are working on some Java code, I can ask a senior person from team A to be buddy of team B and C dev leads to ask that whatever challenges they are facing, and I would ask my team B and C to learn from team A, ask the particular senior person that okay, how you are managing your work, how you are developing this particular code, is there any something, any practice that you are following and we are not following that we can adopt. So I will try to make them work in collaboration. I will make buddies between team A and B, between team B and C, and between team A and C, so that they connect on regular time intervals. I will set up some calls also, so that if they are falling apart of some technical practices that one team is using and other team is not using, then they can learn from each other. If they are facing something on part of Scrum and Agile and they need some training on the process side, then I would also set up those calls from my side as a Agile coach to them, and I will coach them on story point estimation if they are not clear about acceptance criteria, how they write it or how it should be in the stories. If they are not habitual of Agile and Scrum mindset, how they do it, I will be guiding them. So this is how I would divide my time. The time I would be giving team C would be more as compared to team B, and then would be giving more time to team B as compared to team A. So this is how I would plan, and will try to collaborate as much as I can with all of the team members. Like some group activities we can do, like suppose sometime a fishbowl type of thing we can plan. That okay, you suggest, like giving them the same requirements, and then asking team members from team A, B, C, how will you plan your work, how will you start your day and finish that work. So every approach should would be different, and they will learn from each other within that call. So that smaller activity can also help them to learn from other teams. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for that elaborated answer. Wonderful. I think we are good for today. It's more than a half an hour, Ashutosh. So let's probably close this session here and maybe we'll do part three for sure. So thank you, Ashutosh, and thank you, friends, for joining us for today's session. We hope you found it helpful and informative. And if you enjoyed the session, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you in our next session. Until then, take care. This is Suresh Sharma along with Ashutosh signing off. Bye bye. Thank you, Ashutosh.
Thank you, Sunan. Thank you.